last week we started a conversation, I should say, about this idea of the lesson will continue until learned. And during that talk, we started this concept, or I shared the story, this old story. It was actually a book where this idea of living a life where you just kept falling in the same hole over and over and over again for a while. And I called this, what we talked about was, we called it the repeating lesson cycle. And we talked about the idea that the lessons continue to show up until we actually start paying attention to see what's going on and actually understand, hey, maybe there's something going on here. And so I talked about this idea of this being like an unconscious loop. So in other words, the lesson shows up, we ignore it, we deny it, we do nothing, and then guess what happens? It just keeps repeating itself. The result is frustration, stagnation. We feel like we're stuck, and we're like, why? Why does this keep happening? And so in terms of actually what happens is, in that story, it has 5 chapters to it. And what I described last week with this idea of each one of the chapters represented a level of consciousness. And so in that level of consciousness, the first one is you're completely unconscious. You're not aware of anything that's going around. You just keep going, huh? And the underlying question that we're asking ourselves when we're at that basic level of consciousness is, why is this happening to me? You are a complete victim. There's nothing you can do about it. Life sucks. Woe is me. That's that level. Then we talked about the second level where it's still fairly unconscious, but we're in denial of this thing that keeps showing up in our life in terms of, maybe there's something that I can do about that, but that's actually not what's happening. But you are starting to at least go, something is going on here. So the question is fairly similar to being unconscious, but it's just a little bit of a variance. Now we're saying, why does this keep happening to me? And then all of a sudden, this is where the third step in this process, the third level of consciousness, if you will, is awareness. Thank God. It's like we start to pay attention, like, maybe this thing is showing up for a specific reason. And when we get to this level, the question that we're often asking ourselves is, why do I keep doing this? Why am I continuing to do that, right? So this is the conscious loop. So the difference between the unconscious loop and the conscious loop, and again, I spent more time on this last week, but just trying to help the ones that weren't here, is that the lesson shows up, actually we stop, we look at it, we learn from it, we actually make some adjustments or changes in our lives, and then we get to move on. And as a result, we get to grow, we get to expand our awareness. And so that is the conscious loop. And I can tell you from a personal standpoint, where do you think it's a lot more fun, being unconscious or being conscious? Just curious. Yes. Conscious, that's where you want to be. That's where the growth, that's where the expansion is, right? And so the fourth step is choice, because back here when you're unconscious, you have no choice. You're sitting here and things keep happening over and over and over and over again. And you don't think you have any choice. You think this thing is just going to keep repeating itself over and over and over again. But when you actually start to pay attention and your awareness starts to expand, all of a sudden you go from, I don't have a choice, I just got to keep doing this over and over and over again, to, actually, I do have a choice. I'm a conscious being. I can make a decision to do something differently here, and you can do something differently. That is choice. And in choice, the question we often ask is, what other choice can I make? Right? Finally, the fifth state of consciousness is transformation, and this is where we actually we get to become the new version of ourselves. This is transformation. Who am I becoming? And you literally get to consciously decide, what is it, who is it that you want to become? Right? So, we did this meditation last week where we started on this process of just observing, one, little pattern that keeps showing up in our life. So we went through that last week. Just looking at the different things, what's showing up in my life, what keeps happening, what keeps repeating myself, and we went from there. So, the question I have as I started thinking about this and I started really processing this, it's an understanding that there is a reason, a very, very specific reason that these lessons keep showing up. And some people, myself included, can sometimes sit back and go, well, I must be screwing something up. I must have done something wrong. There must be something wrong with me. I'm flawed or some other version of it. And I'm really, really, really going to challenge you if you're there in your own life right now. Because many traditions, spiritual traditions, teach us a few things that might help us understand this a little bit from a different point of view. And that's what I'm hoping to share with you this morning. And that is, maybe this earth isn't our permanent home. Maybe we come down here and this is a school, a classroom, if you will. And maybe we came down here to experience our consciousness and we learn through experiences. Okay. And from this perspective, the soul doesn't come down here randomly. In other words, we just didn't show up in this body on this planet for a party, although you could say we did in some respects. But as a general rule of thumb, there was a reason for you coming down here. There was a reason why you're here. So just imagine in this explanation that the soul chooses certain themes in a lifetime, that it's decided it wanted to learn, it wanted to experience it so it could expand itself. Oh, really? Yeah. It came down here to explore it and to master it. So, for example, maybe you came down here to learn about self-worth. Maybe you came down here to learn about love. Maybe you chose forgiveness, trust, boundaries, power, health, self-belief, compassion, authenticity. These big level things. Maybe you came down here to experience that you wanted to have that experience. You wanted to learn about it. And so before you came down here, you're like, what would this lifetime look like for me? And what is it that I want to experience? And what do I want to learn? And I want you to imagine that once you choose your theme for this lifetime, then you start laying out some different circumstances that create the greatest opportunity for that lesson to emerge. Oh, wait a minute. So you mean I didn't screw it up? You mean I didn't do this wrong? You mean like I actually chose these experiences, whatever they are, so that I could learn and so that I could expand. And I did that, and I chose that from the most loving, unconditional, non-judgmental space I could possibly be. And my answer is, you betcha. That's exactly what you did. And so each of us, all of us, came down here and said, this is what I want to experience. This is what I want to learn. This is what I want to expand. Without any judgment, shame, guilt, any of that garbage. And so then all of a sudden you start looking at it and you're like, wow, you mean we all did this? Yeah, we did. We all just wanted to come down here to learn some things. And so then what happens is we start doing a setup. Prior to coming down here, imagine families, relationships, health, religion, sexual orientation, race, your talents, your challenges. Some people even choose big limitations. That's what they choose. Does that make them right? Does that make them wrong? Does that make them good? Does that make them bad? Does that make them anything? No. It's just that you and your soul deeply are aware of what it is that you wanted to learn this lifetime. You wanted to experience it, right? And let me just tell you this, it's not because the soul wants to suffer, because the soul wants to grow. It's all about growth. So then we do all this before we come down here, And then all of a sudden, guess what? We get down here and we forget. There's this thing called the veil of forgetfulness. It's a real thing. And we forget. And then so we come down here, we start hanging out, and we start living. And we forget all this stuff, right? Okay. Because, I mean, you think about it, if we remembered it immediately, there would be no growth, there would be no expansion, there would be no discovery, there'd be nothing, no awakening. Any of that stuff would be gone if you knew it that quick. Although, how many people know little kids or little babies that they know it and you can tell it when you see them? How many people have seen those kids? They're there. They're amazing, by the way. And by the way, there's also more and more of those showing up now than ever, ever, ever before on this planet. It's incredible to see what's happening with them, right? So then life starts to show up for us as we get older. The lessons begin. At first, gently. At first, gently. The little nudge, the little push. And then more loudly, or as I always call it, you get the spiritual 2x4 about right there. Right between the eyes, right? Until eventually we begin to start asking those questions. Why does this keep happening? And so we talked about this idea. Why does this keep happening? And now, what I'm inviting you, instead of asking, why is that happening? What if instead we said, what if what's going on? What if this thing that keeps showing up is happening for me? In other words, what could be going on here in this moment, in this situation, regarding this particular circumstance? What if this is really, as crazy as it sounds, but what if it's a gift? In other words, what if it's just trying to help me ultimately remember who I am? Are you crazy? No, I'm not. Because I believe, I know who you are. You're a beautiful reflection of the divine. I know that you're down here for some reason, and it wasn't random. It wasn't a mistake. None of it was a mistake. All of it was exactly what your soul chose to learn to grow through. Okay. And so what if this thing that keeps showing up and repeating itself over and over and over again is really the curriculum I signed up for? What? Yeah. And what if this is going to give me the greatest opportunity to grow, to expand, to learn what it is that my soul wanted to learn without shame, blame, judgment, or guilt? None of that. We're removing that from the equation. And now you can just start to look at yourself and go, oh my God, really? So that's it? I just came down here to experience some things and to learn a couple of things? And I did all this before I came down here? Yeah. But what happens is, because we forgot, we came down here, and most of us sit around for years in this unconscious loop. We deny it, we avoid it, we resist it, and therefore we repeat it. And that's why the stuff keeps showing up again and again and again. And the soul will send the lesson again, again. Different person shows up, different job shows up, different experience shows up. Same lesson. How many people have noticed that one? What? How? Why am I in the same? Everything's changed. I thought if I got out of this relationship and I got a new one, that I would be happy and it would be great. And it's the same exact one that I had before. I don't get it. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You do get it. But this is where we start to pay attention, and this is where we start to understand, oh, I get it. I'm here to learn something, right? The conscious past begins when we stop asking, how may this go away? Just get rid of it, God. Just get rid of it. And instead, we start asking, what's here to teach me? What am I here to learn? Right? And so last week I mentioned this idea, or I said that I was going to share with you a process that could possibly help you in case you're there, in case there's something that maybe you're going through right now to understand. And the reason I want to share this with you this morning is because here's the thing. Nowhere does it say that you have to continuously learn the lesson even when you're done learning it. Do you get that? Your soul came down here in some cases to learn a specific lesson. Let's say that you learn the lesson. Do you think you got to keep doing it over and over and over again? You don't. You don't. But we don't realize that. We just think, well, I guess this thing's going to keep showing up because after all, and what I'm saying is that is not true. So I'm going to share with you a process, if you will, that might possibly help this morning. And it's called Completing a Soul Lesson, the 7-step process. So, step 1, how about we start becoming aware of what the pattern is? Oh, notice it. How long has it been showing up? How many times has it showed up? Just start to consciously, this is what we did last week in the meditation. We started to become aware, hey, this thing keeps showing up for me. Notice where it repeats: relationships, money, health, family, work. We all have our soft spots. We all have our soft spots, right? We don't deny it anymore. We start looking at it and just observe it. This is interesting. No shame, no blame, no guilt, no judgment. Observe, observe, observe. And for me personally in this stage, what it looked like is that I kept noticing that I would keep getting into different relationships, personal ones and professional ones in my life, where I would just lose myself. What does that mean? That means I made everybody else more important than I was. So their thoughts, their wants, their needs trumped mine. And guess what? As a result, I would wind up being in relationships where my wants and my needs would never get met. Why? Because I was so concerned with the other person in the situation that I would not pay attention to it. I was a people pleaser, right? And I would become, the language is called codependent in some of these relationships. Anybody else have that one? A handful of us, right? And so we run around, everything else and everybody else is more important than we are, and we forget our own souls and we get lost. And that's what winds up happening, right? And so the second thing is then, once we start to observe it, then we start to ask the question and identify the lesson. My suggestion in this phase is to be gentle, be caring, be passionate about what you've got going on. Maybe sit down with a journal. Maybe do this in meditation. Maybe pray. Just a really contemplative time. Like, what is going on here? What is it that I could be here for me? Which one of these life lessons that Mike mentioned, or another one that I think is here for me? We're just identifying the lesson. And here's the thing. Don't rush this. We're not in a hurry. It might take a couple of days. It might take a couple of weeks before all of a sudden you land on it and you go, oh my God. Right? So, identify one thing. And by the way, there can be a couple of lessons you came down here to learn. I think most of us have more than one. But for this example, let's pick one. Okay? So pick one. I'm going to look at this one. Whatever it is that keeps showing up in your life that repeats itself over and over and over again, right? Your self-worth, how to trust yourself. Maybe it's boundaries, maybe forgiveness, maybe self-love, maybe standing up for yourself. I don't know. For me, again, it was that I would lose myself in different relationships I was in with work, people, some of my friends, some of my personal relationships. And again, I would put everybody first. I'd forget my wants and my needs and make the relationship 100% about everybody else other than me. Right? So, step 3, then you start thinking about it. Okay, what did I want to learn? So what did I want to learn? Okay. So again, maybe you wanted to learn about your self-worth. Maybe you wanted to learn about trusting yourself. Maybe you wanted to learn about setting boundaries. Maybe you wanted to learn that you don't need the approval of everybody else. Maybe it's forgiveness. Maybe it's something about your health. Maybe it's something about work. Maybe it's something about finances. I don't know what it's like for you in these different areas of your life, but maybe, just maybe, what is it that maybe you thought, hey, you know what? When I come down here this lifetime, I think I want to work on this one. This is one of the ones I'll work here. So figure it out. Spend some time. What do you think it is that you want to learn, right? And again, for me, what I've realized is that one of the things, my lessons, was to come down here and I needed to learn how to remain true to myself. That's what I needed to learn, regardless of what was going on with another person in relationship. And that's what I needed to learn, right? And this was not easy for me, by the way, folks. This wasn't something that just happened overnight. It took me a while, number one, to even see it because it kept showing up in my life over and over and over again. But then even when I became aware of it, to make the changes, it took a minute. But that's what it was for me. That's what I came down here to learn. One of the things. And I would say for me, it was a pretty big one. It is a pretty big one for me, right? Then step 4, determine what needs to change. So here I am over here, acting a certain way, speaking a certain way, thinking a certain way. This is what it looked like when I was in relationship and I would lose myself. Here's this version of Mike. But then all of a sudden I go, what if I stood over here? How would I look differently? How would I think differently? How would I talk differently? How would I act differently? And so I started consciously paying attention. What does this person over here need to become? Who is this person over here I need to become for this new version of myself? What would I stop doing? What would I start doing? What belief would I have to let go of in order for me to fully stand over here into this new version of myself so that I don't have to keep repeating this lesson over and over and over again? Right? Again, for me, I needed to start learning how to make myself a priority. Do you know how uncomfortable that was for me? A people pleaser? To make myself a priority? To actually be able to identify what my wants and needs are? To be able to express my wants and needs in a relationship? I mean it. It was really uncomfortable for me. Now, I understand that some people here or online are listening to me going, I don't have a clue what you're talking about. That's okay. This was not your lesson this lifetime, is all I'm going to say. For those of you who have the same issue, though, you're sitting there going, yep, got some of that. And it's okay. There's not one lesson that's greater than the other lesson, by the way. There's not one, we all pick whatever it is that we pick. There's not one that's bigger than the other, right? So I needed to know and started to understand that actually I mattered. My thoughts, my feelings, my opinions mattered. I needed to start speaking up more. I needed to start showing up for myself more. I needed to start to honor myself more, love myself more. And this is where you actually start to make the transition. This is when you start going, I need to start thinking differently, speaking differently, acting differently. And you start living this new version of you. So we came over here, we're unconscious, we start to become aware, we understand the things that we're doing, and we're like, not cool anymore. I don't want to be this version of myself. I want to step into this new version. How would it look a little bit differently? Here's the things that I would think, say, and do differently. And then you start living from that space. Wow, that's cool. So you're now standing in this place where you're a different person. Again, this doesn't necessarily happen overnight. It might take a while to do it, right? Here's the thing I'm going to suggest that you add, because I don't think anything up until now has been necessarily earth-shattering. But here's what may be the thing that can make a difference. A ceremony. What do you mean by doing a ceremony? A release ceremony, specifically. Well, what do you mean, Mike? A release ceremony. It's simple. This is where you create some space. And you fully acknowledge the lesson. You fully acknowledge the learning. You fully let yourself off the hook for what you were in the past. You create a space. What does that space look like? I don't know. For me, it's going out into nature, usually going to involve some fire, me personally. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to create a space where I can sit down and have this moment with myself, with Spirit, with God. And I'm going to go, all right, I want to fully acknowledge this lesson that I came down here to learn. This was it. I honor that it came here. I honor that I took it on. I honor everything that it's taught me. But now I'm ready to release it. Like I really did figure it out. I got it. I release any agreement, any contract on a soul level of any unconscious attachment to this thing that requires this lesson to continue. Now is the time. I am complete with this chapter in my life, and I'm ready to move forward for whatever is next. Thank you for this beautiful lesson. Thank you for this opportunity to grow. Thank you for this expansion. And then I let it, and I release it go to Spirit. I let it go into the fire. Poof. That's it. So I have a ceremony, and I release this stuff. Folks, you don't have to keep doing this stuff over and over and over again. You don't. You chose something to learn. You became conscious. You learned the lesson, and now you get to move on. My suggestion is make it very real. You made it real before you came down here. I promise you that. You made it real before you came down here. Why would you not make it real now? It's kind of like where you're standing in this present moment in your full alignment with your divinity, and you're going, thank you very much. I'm ready for the next chapter of my life. I'm ready for this next experience. I'm ready for the next lesson, if you will. But you do it consciously. You are so powerful. You have, really, most of us, I'm going to throw me in this batch, by the way. We have no idea how powerful we are. We have no idea that when we step for a moment and we pause and we do this process, like the universe responds to you. Because the universe kind of goes like, oh, he gets it. Oh, she gets it. Oh, okay, I guess their soul's ready to move on. Yes. Yes, 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 and yes. And then finally, step 7 is freedom. Why? Because we're done. And it's not like this thing won't show up occasionally. I don't want to paint any false pictures here. But the way that you approach it when it shows up, being over here, is way different over here. Here, you're stuck. You're not moving. Nothing's changing. Right? And you swirl and you're a victim. Over here, it's kind of like you look at it and you smile and you just go, thanks. I don't need you anymore. I really don't. So, we don't have to keep living this stuff over and over and over again. You just don't. You actually can take yourself, and if these steps work for you, beautiful. Use them. They've been wonderfully helpful for me at times. But just know, I guess the biggest thing I want to leave you with this morning is this idea that you don't have to keep doing this stuff over and over and over again. How many people were able to see maybe something, a pattern or something that you wanted to pay some attention to? Raise a hand. Handful. Good. Good. I invite you back into that meditation, back into that prayer, back into that practice, just from the standpoint that sometimes it takes a while for whatever it is that you're wanting to learn, whatever it is your soul is wanting to learn. Sometimes it takes going back and looking at it a few times. It might not come crystal clear all at once. But here's my promise to you. Once you get what I call and catch that tiger by the tail, once you got it, what I'm going to share with you is that there's something that happens when you start consciously acknowledging it and you start paying attention to it. It's like the universe kind of knows what's going on. The universe is aware of what you're trying to do, and the universe is going to do everything it can to support you to finally make that change that you're wanting to make. And that change can show up in a lot of different ways for you. It might be a book, it might be a person, it might be a place, it might be a thing, it might be a circumstance, or several of them. But what I'm saying is once you get out of standing over here in this unconscious loop and you start becoming conscious, the universe is aware of the game that you're up to. Why? Because the universe is conscious. Contrary to common belief, and I understand everything out there is trying to tell you this just looks like chaos. It's not. That underneath all of it, there's a rhyme and a reason. There's a synchronicity to all of it. And what I'm saying is not only individually, but collectively. And when you start consciously playing this game, like the powerful creator, the divine reflection of God that you are, and you start acknowledging that within yourself, then all of a sudden the universe goes, oh, they got it. They got it. And then the universe starts going, oh, okay. Oh, okay. We'll get on this bandwagon as well. And then all of a sudden the universe starts to respond to you and treat you like the true God that you are. That's who you are. You are a divine reflection of God. You are a powerful creator. We just forgot it when we came down here. And what I'm going to do with all of my breath that I have in this body every single Sunday is to hopefully help you remember that. Because once you start playing this game, then everything changes. Everything changes. And by the way, just so you know, you're doing an amazing job. Right now. You are doing an amazing job. It's not easy being down here right now. But you're doing an amazing job. You are. Just because of the fact that you're here. Just because of the fact that you chose to come down here right now. And again, I've talked about this before, but in my opinion, there's a very specific reason why you came down here, why we came down here, right? So, thank you. Thank you for coming here this morning. Thank you for sharing your energy and your light with us this morning. Thank you for being who and what you are. You are an incredible gift to all of us. We are really, really, really lucky to have you in our little community. And as we continue to grow and we continue to expand, never forget, ever, ever, ever forget who you are. You're beautiful. So thank you. I love you. God bless. Namaste and Namaway.